Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. This soul is happy to be connected with you all through the series of podcast Saints of India. At the outset, my sincere thanks to HinduJanajagriti.com for giving me permission to use the material from their portal. Vedanta.com and Wikipedia.com were other sources of information. He is an Indian Hindu monk and a key figure in the introduction of Indian philosophies of Vedanta and Yoga to the Western world. He was one of the most influential philosophers and social reformers in his contemporary India and the most successful and influential missionaries of Vedanta to the Western world. Welcome to this episode number 16 in the series, and this soul is happy to share with you, in a nutshell, the life of Swami Vivekananda. Swami Vivekanandaji's original name was Narendranath. He was born on 12th January 1863 in Kolkata. We celebrate Swamiji's Jayanti, that is, his birth anniversary is celebrated as the International Youth Day. Right from childhood, two aspects of his behavior could clearly be noticed. One was his devout and compassionate nature, and the other was his readiness to perform any act of courage. Since his whole family was spiritually inclined, he received an appropriate religious upbringing. Swami Vivekananda was admitted to the school founded by Mr. Ishwara Chandra Vidyasagar in 1870. While in school, he focused both on studies as well as bodybuilding. He had great respect for his mother tongue. One such incident was when he had an English language class in school. He said, "I shall not learn the language of the white master." At least for 7 to 8 months he abstained from learning that language. Later, he learned English owing to compulsion. Swami Vivekananda stood first in his matriculate examination and added to the glory of his family and school. Then he joined the Presidency College in Kolkata and completed his MA in philosophy. Narendra's father, Vishwanath Datta, wanted his son to get married and he started making arrangements. Narendra was reluctant to marry and was attempting to quench his religious and spiritual thirst. Ramchandra Datta, the maternal uncle of Bhuneshwari Devi, that is Narendra's mother, also asked him to marry, but Narendra refused. Dr. Ramchandra Dutt, a relative of Narendra who has been raised in his house, was a disciple of Sri Ramakrishna Paramahansa. He noticed that Narendra was inspired by religious feelings to such an extent that he was contemplating renunciation in his childhood itself. He once told Narendra, "Brother, if your only goal in life is to further the enhancement of our religion, then do not get involved in the Brahma Samaj or others. You go to Dakshineshwari and meet Sri Ramakrishna." Following the suggestions of Ramachandra and Professor Hasty, Narendra went to Dakshineshwar to meet Ramakrishna. Initially, Narendra did not accept Ramakrishna as his master and found him monomaniac, but eventually he became one of closest people in his life. The holy man was in many ways from quite a different background than Narendra. Yet, Narendra was drawn to him. On the one hand, Ramakrishna seemed to be a madman and a monomaniac, yet the holy man radiated a holy atmosphere unlike anything he had experienced elsewhere. The more Narendra saw him, the more he saw an extraordinary holiness and a most uncommon sanity. Later, Ramakrishna recalled the day when Narendra first visited Dakshineshwar. He said, "Narendra entered the room through the western door facing the Ganges. I noticed that he had no concern about his physical appearance. His hair and clothes were not tidy. Like others, he had no attachments for external objects. His eyes showed that a greater part of his mind was turned inward all the time. When I observed this, I wondered, is it possible that such a great aspirant could live in Calcutta? the home of the worldly minded? Ramakrishna warmly welcomed Narendra and asked him to sit on a mat spread on the floor. Then Ramakrishna asked him to sing a song. Narendra gave his assent and started singing a devotional song. Let us go back once more, O mind, to our proper home. Here in this foreign land of earth, why should we wander aimlessly in strangers' guise? These living beings round about and the five elements are strangers to you, all of them, none are your own. Why do you so forget yourself in love with strangers' foolish mind? Why do you so forget your own? When Narendra finished singing, Ramakrishna suddenly became emotional, grasped Narendra's hands and took him into the northern porch of the Kali temple and with tears in his eyes said to him, "Ha, you have come so late. How unkind of you to keep me waiting so long. My ears are almost seared listening to the cheap talk of worldly people. Oh, how I have been yearning to unburden my mind to one who will understand my thought." Then with folded hands he said, "Lord, I know you are the ancient sage Nara, the incarnation of Narayana, born on earth to remove the miseries of mankind." Then Ramakrishna and Narendra returned to their room and started talking. Narendra asked Ramakrishna if he had seen or experienced God. Narendra asked the same question to Debendranath Tagore as well, who skipped the question and praised Narendra's inquisitiveness. But this time, when Narendra asked Ramakrishna the same question, the latter immediately replied in the positive. Without any hesitation, he said, "Yes, I have seen God. I see Him as I see you here, only more clearly. God can be seen. One can talk to Him. But who cares for God? People shed torrents of tears for their wives, children, wealth, and property. But who weeps for the vision of God? If one cries sincerely for God, one can surely see Him." Vivekananda was so much impressed with this meeting that he started visiting Ramakrishna daily when he felt religion could be given. One touch, one glance can change a whole life. Narendra felt amazed as this was the first time he was meeting someone who could say that he had met or experienced God. He also understood those were not mere words but words uttered from deep inner experiences. He left Dakshineshwar and came back to Calcutta in a highly puzzled and bewildered state of mind. The first meeting with Ramakrishna so much puzzled the young mind of Narendra that he was feeling anxious to meet Ramakrishna again. He finally went to meet him for the second time on a weekday. During the second meeting, he had another strange experience. When he was talking to Ramakrishna, Ramakrishna suddenly placed his right foot on Narendra's chest and Narendra started feeling unconscious. He felt as if everything around him, the rooms, the walls, the temple garden were vanishing away. Narendra got scared and cried out, "What are you doing to me? I have my parents, brothers and sisters at home." Ramakrishna laughed and moved his foot from his body. He restored his consciousness and said, "All right, everything will happen in due time." Narendra became even more puzzled and felt that Ramakrishna had hypnotized him. He also felt disgusted as he apparently could not resist Ramakrishna from influencing him. Narendra went to meet Ramakrishna for the third time. This time, he was very scared after his last experience. Ramakrishna welcomed Narendra and started talking with him. Narendra was trying to stay alert and not to be hypnotized once again by Ramakrishna. Ramakrishna took him to the adjacent garden and touched him. Narendra failed to resist Ramakrishna's exalted spiritual touch and became unconscious. Ramakrishna later said, after making Narendra unconscious, he asked him many questions such as his previous works, his future aims, etc. After receiving answers to his questions, Ramakrishna felt assured and later he told other disciples that he was confident that Narendra had attained perfection in his previous birth. Ramakrishna loved Narendra as an embodiment of God Narayana. He himself explained the reason to Narendra. Mother says that I love you because I see the Lord in you. The day I shall not see him in you, I shall not be able to bear even the sight of you. He compared Narendra with a 1,000-petal lotus, a jar of water, haldir a red-eye carp, and a very big receptacle. He asked others not to attempt to assess or judge Narendra, as he felt people would never be able to understand or judge him. He also compared Narendra to a big pigeon. Sri Ramakrishna had decided to give Narendra the responsibility of carrying on his incomplete mission. One day, Sri Ramakrishna wrote on a piece of paper, Narendra will perform the task of enlightening the masses. Somewhat hesitantly, Narendra replied, I won't be able to do all this. Sri Ramakrishna immediately spoke with great resolve. What? Won't be able? Your bones will perform this task? Later, Sri Ramakrishna initiated Narendranath on the path of sannyas and gave him the name Swami Vivekananda. Swami Vivekananda, along with Taraknath, another disciple of Ramakrishna, established the Ramakrishna mission after Mahasamadhi of Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa. It began its activities from a dilapidated building at Varahanagar near Kolkata. Earlier, it was believed that this place was a haunted house. Vivekananda kept Sri Ramakrishna's mortal ashes and some other objects used by him at this place. Soon, Sri Ramakrishna's disciples started living there. India was ruled by the British during the period of Swami Vivekananda. Owing to the influence of British education system, their culture, strategies of Christian missionaries, misleading people and their literature, the affluent class in Bharat developed inferiority complex feeling that Hindu dharma and culture is of very low standard, inhuman and barbarian. Many Hindus would have been baptized and adopted Christianity, but there is no doubt that it was curbed due to the fiery propagation of Vedanta in other countries by Swami Vivekananda. Swami Vivekananda represented India and consequently Hindu Dharma in a world conference which was held in Chicago for all religions in the year of 1893. Swami Vivekananda gave a message of spiritual unity to the world in this conference. He also emphasized that along with spiritual progress, materialistic, worldly progress was equally important. Swami Vivekananda's guidance helped to generate new consciousness and enthusiasm amongst the youth. Continuous invasions, immorality, looting, oppression of their women, and violence had crushed Hindus mentally. Swami Vivekananda undertook the mission of propagating message of Ramakrishna and pulling out Hindus from the depression and defeated mentality generated amongst people. Swami Vivekananda traveled all over India for this great mission and created enthusiasm and patriotism amongst people through his spiritual discourses. Moreover, he made the whole world realize the importance of Hindu Dharma and Hindustan. Swami Vivekananda was half asleep one night. He saw a miraculous dream. Sri Ramakrishna's blazing form was moving ahead over the seas and beckoning Swamiji to follow him. Swami Vivekananda opened his eyes. His heart was filled with indescribable ecstasy. At the same time, he heard very clearly a divine voice saying, "Go." Then he resolved to go abroad and completed all arrangements within a day or two. Swami Vivekananda left the Indian shores aboard the ship Peninsular on 31st May 1893. He reached Vancouver Port in Canada on 15th July. From there, he traveled by train to the famous city of Chicago in America. He came to know that a World Parliament of Religions was going to be held on 11th September. Swami Vivekananda did not have the invite required to participate in this conference. Further, even the date to register as a representative had lapsed. Yet, wherever he went, people were attracted to him. On the very first day, he met Professor J.H. Wright, who was teaching Greek at Harvard University. The two of them conversed for almost 4 hours. The professor was so impressed by Swami Vivekananda's talent and intellect that he accepted the responsibility of giving Swamiji's admittance to the World Parliament of Religions as a representative. Swami Vivekananda proved to be a true representative of Hinduism as he made his fervent appeal for tolerance to the whole world from the dais of the World Parliament of Religions at Chicago on 11 September 1893. It must have been the divine plan to allow this saint to introduce the world to the great Hindu Dharma. This conference was inaugurated with the chanting of hymns by the various religious heads. It was a melodious beginning the conference. On the dais, at the center, was the religious head of the Roman Catholic sect of America. Swami Vivekananda was not the representative of any particular sect. He had arrived at the conference as a representative of the Sanatan Hindu Vedic Dharma of all Bharatavarsha. The conference was attended by almost 6,000 to 7,000 ladies and gentlemen. As per the instructions by the chairperson, each representative on the dais was reading out his pre-prepared speech. Swami Vivekananda had not prepared any written speech. Finally, he stood up from his seat, having sent a silent prayer to his guru. He addressed the conference with the words, "Sisters and brothers of America." These words had such miraculous strength in them that those thousands gathered, stood up, and there was continuous applause. The emotional appeal in those compassionate words had stirred every heart. It was the first time ever that any orator had referred to the whole of mankind as sisters and brothers. Further, he entranced all present with his brilliant and powerful oration. Always stressing the universal and humanistic side of the Vedas, the oldest sacred texts of Hinduism, as well as belief in service rather than dogma, Vivekananda attempted to infuse vigor into Hindu thought, placing less emphasis on the prevailing pacifism and presenting Hindu spirituality to the West. Swami Vivekananda felt that the Hindu Samaj has the potential to become the spiritual teacher to the world. After centuries, someone had again shown to the Hindu society its own wide horizons. Yet, Swamiji did not criticize any religion. He did not degrade any religion. He only wiped the dirt that had accumulated on the Hindu Dharma owing to its ill treatment and affronts at the hands of its invaders. Swami Vivekananda showed Hindu Dharma its own irradiant self and placed it on the highest pedestal of the World Parliament of Religions. When speaking about Hindustan, he says that it is a sacred land, a land with a divine purpose. Hindustan is the abode of spirituality and introspection. Right from the ancient ages, founders of religious tenets were born here. They satisfied the scorched earth with the cooling waters of the eternal truth, Sanatan Satya. It is the only land where one can experience not only tolerance but also affection for other religions. Swami Vivekananda returned back to Kolkata to a grand welcome after projecting Bharat in its deserved glory. The plan of my movement, Vedant, is everyday life of Bharat. Our duty for the day, the great sons of Bharat, future of Bharat, were some of the subjects on which he started delivering lectures. His language at all times remained resplendent throughout all his speeches. His incisive thoughts had a great impact on both Indian as well as foreign minds. He could spread the message of Vedanta all around the world. Thus, he won for Arya Dharma, Arya people and Arya land its rightful prestigious position. Swami Vivekananda held a lot of respect for the spiritual heritage of Bharat, but he did attack through his speeches its undesirable customs and the abominable caste system. Thus, his speeches served as a wake-up call even to the Hindu society. His ardent appeal struck lightning in the hearts of his dormant countrymen. His natural state of being would have been to meditate on the formless eternal entity, that is, Nirvikar Samadhi. Yet, he set aside his own renunciation and thought about the mortal struggles, sorrows and joys of common people. Throughout his life, he strived for their upliftment. Real sannyas is to sacrifice the self for the betterment of others. He lived this axiom. Swami Vivekananda went through a lot of struggle in his life to fulfill the dreams of his guru, Pujya Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa. He went to the Western countries to spread the message of Vedanta in every corner of the world. He lived in this world but never belonged to it. His mind was always with his guru. He was very focused and determined. In spite of his ill health, Swamiji used to give spiritual lectures to his disciples and boost the spirit of his fellow workers who were engaged in the construction of the Ramakrishna Mutt. On his last day, Swamiji woke up early and went to the shrine for meditation. Unlike other days, he took more time to complete his meditation. After finishing his meditation at 11 a.m., he went out and asked his disciples to arrange a puja for Mother Kali. In the afternoon, he enjoyed a hearty lunch. After lunch, he took up a 3-hour class on Sanskrit Vyakaran. Perhaps he knew that it was his last day with his disciples. He made the class very interesting and educative, as though he wanted to give out everything he knew in one day. In the evening, Swamiji returned to his room, tired and mentally exhausted. He meditated for an hour or so. After his meditation, he felt a strange suffocation, as though his breath were getting heavier. He asked his attendant to open all the doors and windows. Swamiji lied down on his bed with a rosary in his hand, chanting the name of his guru. As his attendant was massaging his feet, he went into a deep sleep at 9:10 p.m. Blood came down rushing from his nostrils and mouth. His body had become still and cold. He went into a deep sleep, only to wake up in some other world. According to yoga scriptures, an enlightened yogi passes out through the opening on the top of the head, causing blood to flow in the nostrils and the mouth. Hope you enjoyed listening to this podcast in the series of Saints of India. If you would like to contribute to this project of mine, you may kindly do it through patreon.com, the details of which are given in the description. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha.